What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome back to the TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. I kind of talked about some ideas about the trade deadline for the Bulls in my Bulls versus Nuggets post-game recap. So I'm dropping this video that's at the same time as my recap of the Bulls versus Nuggets game. So go check that out if you go to my channel. But I wanted to kind of dive deeper into this as I cut that the trade deadline talk out of that video. But I want to kind of dive deeper into seeing like what can Karnisovas do right now at the trade deadline. I'm going to preface this video by saying that I really don't think that the Bulls are going to be doing anything at the trade deadline. Reason being is that if you look at the NBA right now, like of all these teams really that I'm showing you on the screen, like from 1 to 13, they're all kind of thinking, hey, we're trying to make the playoffs, right? And with the new play-in tournament of the 9 and 10 seeds making the playoffs and potentially, being the 8th and 7th seeds, like these teams, even all the way at the bottom here, like even down to the Cavaliers, they're all thinking, hey, we can make the playoffs this year, right? So especially in the Eastern Conference, I don't really see a lot of sellers out there, which is one of the reasons why I just don't think anything's going to be happening at the trade deadline for the entire league, but especially the Bulls, right? If you even look at in the Western Conference, it's like even like down to, let's say, the Kings here, like these are teams thinking, hey, we can make the playoffs, right? Because if you look at Memphis, they only have 18 wins. The Kings only have 17 wins, right? They're like right there. So there's no reason for teams to be like, let's tank for the rest of the season and give up these players for just basically nothing, right? If anything, you're gonna see the Bulls kind of be sellers, but I do want to kind of talk about the title of this video is like, can the Bulls get this point guard that they desperately need this trade deadline? And I already made a video, which you go check up here or link in the description. It was basically titled, what would the Bulls do at the trade deadline? It's basically just me saying probably nothing, and I'm showing you why, because I think the Bulls can do a bunch of stuff in the offseason to fulfill that point guard position, which desperately needs to be filled, right? But I'm going to kind of break down some things and kind of show you what won't work, because a bunch of people have kind of been adding me saying like, hey, how about this person? I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know how the contracts work for that, right? And they just don't get it. So I'm going to show you what's not going to work, but then I'm also going to show you kind of just one idea I had in my head that maybe could happen. I sincerely doubt it, though. But honestly, I just don't think anything's going to be happening at the trade deadline in the entire NBA. I mean, we've seen this year that the one big trade that happened was the James Harden trade. The other trade that happened was like the PJ Tucker trade, right? There has been really nothing else that has happened that of like big trades happening, right? We saw like Steve McKaylo get traded for Hamidou Diallo, but again, that's like very small, right? I'm talking about like big major trades, and it's really just because no teams are selling right now. A bunch of the NBA right now, they're all thinking, hey, we can make the playoffs right now. And the deadline being 5 days away, that's not going to change a whole lot. So don't expect a big trade deadline. That's all I'm just trying to tell you. But I'm going to kind of break down some things. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a Bulls fan here. I'm going to kind of go over what the Bulls, their status again in this video, as I've done it multiple times. But yet again, I want to talk about how the Bulls right now, again, we're over the salary cap. The salary cap is at 109. We're at 124 million, right? That means that we cannot absorb any contract unless it's like within 5% of the contracts going out, right? So we basically just can't get money. We can't obtain money in return, right? We have to be sending out money, or we match the contracts to make a trade, which is kind of the reason why Otto Porter is so hard to trade right now, because we're not the only team operating over the cap. Most teams are operating over the cap except for like the Thunder. So it's not like a team can just absorb this contract right now. Like if anything, it would be easier for a team to absorb that in the offseason, but no teams really have money or cap space specifically. So it's hard to trade him, but I really want to talk about like the point guard position. Like, can the Bulls like get their fix at this point guard spot, which obviously needs fixing right now? And as much as I love Satoransky, like he's best as a backup, or like he's just a solid point guard, but he's not a floor general, right? And I talk about the Bulls needing that floor general. And the main kind of thought I had about this video is like, I'm gonna kind of bring you back to like, remember what the Phoenix Suns were before Chris Paul got there, obviously, and before the bubble, right? The Phoenix Suns, they were an under 500 team. But they had a bunch of young talent, right? Devin Booker was an all-star. You just drafted Aiden, right? You got all these young players on the team, but one of the main things that they were missing was a point guard, right? And the Phoenix Suns were a team that just constantly were blowing games or blowing leads in the fourth quarter because they didn't have a point guard, right? They were basically giving the ball to Devin Booker constantly and asking him to be the main scorer and score all our buckets in crunch time, but also be the person controlling the pace, be the main ball handler, and be the floor general and make sure that we run the plays properly. And that's just so much on one player, right? And unfortunately for the Bulls this season, that's kind of happened to LaVine, right? We don't really have a point guard or a floor general out there to take that responsibility, right? So you're basically thrusting LaVine into that point guard spot in the fourth quarter because he is our best player, but that's too much for him to handle because then he starts becoming passive and he's not looking to score. That's where LaVine's at his worst. And now, we're all yelling, hey, we need this point guard, right? And I'm specifically saying, like, I don't think this Bulls team needs a facilitator, which a lot of Bulls fans are talking about. I think this team just needs a really good ball handler, but also like a leader and a floor general to help take the pressure off LaVine and tell LaVine, hey, I got the ball. You go run the play. I'm going to get you the ball where you're best at, right? I'm going to help you score in the crunch time. That's what this Bulls team needs. So bringing it back to the comparison of the Phoenix Suns, right? Devin Booker, right, for example, he's obviously the best player in the Phoenix Suns right now. He is obviously the number one leading scorer. He's obviously the number one option, right? But if you look at what's happening in the fourth quarter for the Phoenix Suns and why they're playing so well is that Chris Paul is the guy in the fourth quarter. He's in charge of mostly everything. He's just telling Booker, hey, go score the bucket, right? But I'm going to be in charge of controlling the pace. I'm going to be in charge of everybody, making sure that they're all in their sets. I'm going to make sure that we don't turn the ball over. I'm going to make sure that we're going to be playing at a slow pace, but make sure we don't commit silly mistakes, right? He is the coach on the floor as a player, right? And that's what this Bulls team really needs right now. So can they go get that type of guy? The guy that can handle the ball in crunch time, but also just allow LaVine just to be LaVine. Because we're making LaVine not be himself right now, especially what we just saw in the Denver Nuggets game. So looking at this cap space thing, it's like we are very... like, our hands are basically tied. It's so hard to make a move right now, especially when we're operating over the cap. So, I'm going to kind of go over some things that have been added at me. One person that added me was like, hey, what about Ricky Rubio? And I'm like, I think Rubio would be a pretty good option. I mean, he helped, he played in Phoenix when Phoenix won the 8-0 win streak in the bubble. But, I mean, the thing with Rubio is that he has to play well for the team to also play well. So, let's look at Minnesota, for example. Ricky Rubio is making $17 million. So if you're the Bulls, you have to give out about $17 million. You can't just absorb that contract and give up nothing, right? So, it's kind of difficult for the Bulls to make such a trade. Because, again, if you just look at what's happening here, it's like the big contracts right now is obviously Otto Porter Jr., that's obviously too much money. But, I'm not trading LaVine for Ricky Rubio. And I wouldn't trade Thaddeus Young straight up for Ricky Rubio either. That just kills your team, right? So I already know people are going to talk about Satoransky and stuff like that. So let's just, for example, let's just take Sato. Obviously, no one's taking on Felicia's contract, but let's take Sato, for example, and let's just throw in Denzel Valentine, right? Does that work? I mean, honestly, I don't really think, like, the money, first off, that will work. The money works in that situation, but why would the Timberwolves do such a thing? I mean, right now, one of the biggest issues for the Timberwolves is that D'Angelo Russell's health is just in such a big question mark. And number two, I actually think they're still trying to think like, hey, we're trying to win here, right? So getting that doesn't really help them at all in their case because like they're already be tied up in cap space no matter what happens next year. So I just don't really see how that would help the Timberwolves. Potentially, that is a potential deal. Like maybe that would happen, but why would Timberwolves do that? But number two, does it really help the Bulls? Like, yeah, you get Rubio, but he's not that great of a defender like he once was, and he's not a great three-point shooter, which we obviously need a better three-point shooter at the point guard spot, right? I don't really think that really fixes the Bulls' issues here, but that's my opinion. Let's move on to the next one. De'Aaron Fox. I see a bunch of Bulls fans like saying, hey, we should get De'Aaron Fox. And not going to lie, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I would love to get De'Aaron Fox, man. But it's not like we can just get De'Aaron Fox, right? I mean, the Kings obviously love this dude, right? So he's only making $8 million a season. So it'd be interesting to see if the Kings would actually throw his name out there as available. I obviously don't think he is because they just signed him to this big extension, which he obviously deserves. But I mean, $8 million. This is the problem right now for the Bulls, right? Because it's like I would trade a whole lot for De'Aaron Fox, but me giving up Lauri Markkanen and Kobe White, that's already too much money. That's already over $8 million, or not even close to $8 million, right? You're at $11 million. That's too far. So it's like, and not only that, like that's just not enough. So how do you do this trade then? Because he's making such little money. That's the biggest issue right now for the Bulls. It's like if you're gonna get a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who by the way is not available, right? Like it's so hard to match that contract properly because you got like throwing in two of your young pieces that doesn't get you anywhere because it's like that's already too much money. The Kings are then gonna have to like match up the money stuff, but I honestly just don't think I'm like, how the heck would the Bulls do this trade? Like it's so difficult, and not only that, but we'd have to give up a bunch of picks, and I'm not in the position right now to say like, yeah, let's go do that. I'm not giving up a bunch of picks right now. Because I guarantee the Kings, it's like they'd be asking for at minimum 2, but more like 3, just because they know that this is like a star in the making, right? So honestly, I don't really see why this trade would ever happen. If anything, if you can somehow get Harrison Barnes and then swap it for Otto Porter Jr. and then make the money match up somehow like that, sure. But I'm going to tell you right now that's not going to happen because the Kings are not trading De'Aaron Fox. So that goes off the window. Next person I want to talk about was Lonzo Ball. This is kind of an interesting thing here. I already know, but Bulls fans, I know. You love Lonzo Ball. I'm not the biggest fan. If you've all been watching my videos, I'm not the biggest fan of Lonzo Ball on the Bulls. I honestly think that Lonzo is not a point guard. I think he's best at the shooting guard position. Reason being is because if you look at Lonzo's made shots this year, he's made a total of 196 field goals. 114 of those are from 3-point range, which is obviously over 50%. But main thing for me is I'm looking at most of Lonzo's made shots are assisted. So to me, that's telling me like, hey, he needs someone to set him up to make the shot. Not only that, it's 132 made assisted shots, and 97 of those are from 3-point range. He has become mostly just like a spot up shooter and a guy that goes in the lane but also plays good defense. And I'm not gonna lie, he's having a damn good year. But I don't want to put him in a position that would put him as unsuccessful. But not only that, let's talk about this. Like, the Bulls just had a big meltdown against the Denver Nuggets, right? And everyone's screaming, oh my God, Lonzo would help this team so much. He's another ball handler. He can help pass the ball so it doesn't get so stagnant. I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but he doesn't bring what I think this Bulls team desperately needs. And that's like the Chris Paul factor of like, Chris Paul's the floor general, right? Lonzo hasn't really been a floor general in his career. And one of the things about the Pelicans is that I think the Pelicans have a bunch of talent on this roster. And if anything, they should not be 17-24 right now. But they got Zion, they got Ingram, they got Adams, they even got Eric Bledsoe still there. Like they got JJ Redick off the bench. Like they got a bunch of talent on this team. But they're also having trouble closing games this year. And they have a bunch of talent, right? So if Lonzo can't close games properly with the Pelicans, how is he going to help close games with the Bulls? I don't really understand how that works. And this Pelicans team is easily better than this Bulls team right now. They have much better players and much more talent than the Bulls. So, yes, does Lonzo bring that ball handling aspect? Yes. Is he a good passer? Yes, but the Bulls have been top 10 in assists all year, so it's not like we need more passing. But I'm not opposed to the idea of like, okay, let's try it out. And I know there's been reports this year saying like, hey, AK likes Lonzo. We don't know about that. So first off, just saying, for all you people are like, hey, let's trade Larry Markkanen for Lonzo Ball. Hey, I'm with you. I would love to do that trade because I think Lonzo's a by far better player than I think Lonzo's a better player than Larry Markkanen by far. It's not even a question. But it's not that easy to do because if you do this trade, right, it's like, okay, yeah, you got it, right? But the Pelicans aren't accepting this, right? This is not going to happen. Like they're very much aware that Markkanen has not been that good this year. But not only that, it's like you're trading about to be restricted free agent for another about to be restricted free agent, right? It doesn't really give them anything. So you're going to have to give them something else in return. So I'm thinking like, okay, like maybe we give up like Denzel, which I don't even know that's even possible, right? But we have to give up more, right? I know a bunch of Bulls fans that would do this trade right here. I know a bunch of them, but it's probably not going to happen, right? So this trade right here is just I honestly don't think this is enough, to be honest. Like I think if you're the Pelicans, you're probably thinking, this isn't helping us because number one, we're trying to win, but number two, like we're about to hit restricted free agency, a guy that's now on the bench. Is this really enough? I honestly don't know, but I don't think the Pelicans accept this deal either. So it's going to have to maybe picks or a third team or something. It's going to have to involve something else. But this is just kind of the start of where I was thinking. Like maybe this could work. But like a straight up Markkanen for Lonzo is not going to happen, right? But a Kobe White and Markkanen for Lonzo, maybe. But I don't know if Karnisovas is willing just to do that immediately, like right off the bat. And not only that, I just don't think the Pelicans will be like, hey, yeah, let's do this. But let's move on. I'm going to get to this in a second here. But this had me started to think because like one of the things that I'm constantly being told about from Bulls fans, it's like, why haven't we traded Otto Porter Jr.? Like he's clearly worthless to us, so like why haven't we gotten rid of him? I'm like, well, if we don't want Otto, then why would another team want Otto? Right? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like that logic from Bulls fans, it drives me insane because it's like, yeah, we don't want this guy, obviously, so why would another team want him? Right? So if we're gonna trade Otto Porter Jr., we're not getting any value in return. It's not gonna be a lot. If anything, we might have to send it first, which I don't want to do, obviously. But trading Otto brings up like an interesting thought in my head because I was like, maybe we can make a deal with the Pelicans because I brought New Orleans for the sole fact like, okay, they're a young team right now, and obviously they're gonna try to get better next year. So you got Ingram getting better, you got Zion obviously getting a lot better. Not only that, you got a bunch of guys on your bench that haven't really played. Like Kira Lewis hasn't played that a lot this year. Not Jackson Hayes hasn't played a lot, right? They have a bunch of young talent, and then their cap looks a lot better this upcoming offseason, right? So, $89 million, you're at $109 million for the cap. So you got $20 million to work with. But let's say we can get rid of this Eric Bledsoe deal for the Pelicans. Like, this is an interesting thought. Like, can we get rid of that $18 million for them? Because honestly, I mean, if you're the Pelicans, if you can get rid of this is a big win for you because now you can go, make another trade if you need to, but also play the free agency market to help get this team better, which obviously this team has a lot of holes in it, right? So I was starting to think like, hey, maybe we can do like an Otto Porter for something for the Pelicans and like we take on some contracts. So initially I was thinking maybe JJ Redick and then we throw in Nico Melli, but obviously this doesn't work, which then I was like, maybe take away JJ Redick and maybe we throw in Eric Bledsoe. Oh, whoops, my bad. Throw in Eric Bledsoe here. I'm like, okay, the money is much closer as you can see, right? There has to be this is very doable right here. The money is close, right? So 125% of, whatever. It's like it's close enough that this trade could somehow be worked out. So I'm still thinking like the Pelicans aren't going to give up any of their young guys for Otto Porter Jr. It's not going to happen, Bulls fans. Just think about it, right? So I was thinking, okay, you throw maybe Hernan Gomez and Gabriel, so then you're setting out enough money for the Pelicans. Obviously, these two guys don't have to go to the Bulls because this obviously wouldn't work because the Bulls have too many players, but it's like maybe you trade these guys off somewhere else and then the money works for the Pelicans and this type of deal. They just want Otto back and you trade out all these guys. So that's an interesting thought for me. But then I went to this. So I was like, maybe we can do something here that would get Markkanen and Porter Jr. for Bledsoe, Lonzo, and then something else, right? This right here, when you try this trade, it is successful. Now, obviously, I'm going to tell you this right now. This is not going to happen. A straight-up Otto Porter Jr. for Eric Bledsoe, for Lonzo Ball, Markkanen in that deal, and Gabriel, that is not going to happen. I'm going to tell you that right now. It is not going to happen. So, if you're the Bulls, obviously, a third team could get involved or something. You can maybe send out a little bit more here. But the problem is that, like, they're... with New Orleans, like they're already accepting more money, right? It's very hard to accept any more money, right? So it's like how else would you give out more in return for what you're getting back, right? So this is where I'm talking about like a third team. Like a third team might need to get involved here, which would involve some other players. But again, how legit is that? Because if you're New Orleans, you're thinking, hey, we're right there, right? We're in this hunt. We're a game, or not even, like, I guess technically you're a game and a half out of the 10th spot, but, like, we're right there. We have one less win than the Memphis Grizzlies, and there's no reason to start, like, saying, hey, let's just tank the rest of this year, right? They're big on, like, let's build up Zion, let's build up Ingram. So I just don't see it's like, hey, let's just kind of really strip it all down, get rid of one of our young guys, and then accept Markkanen, who is about to hit restricted free agency, but then also accept Otto Porter Jr. But it's like, how much do they value Eric Bledsoe is going to be the key thing, because it's like, do they want to get rid of this contract? Would they want to get rid of this so they have even more money come this offseason? Now, big thing for the Bulls here. Like, I am okay accepting this $18 million, because if you're the Bulls, no matter what, you're going to have this $72 million guaranteed, or $72 million in guaranteed money at the max, right? The Bulls can get close to $50 million or $50 million plus if they get rid of Thaddeus Young and Satoransky, who are, by the way, they're both on non-guaranteed deals, right? You get rid of Daniel Gafford as well, you get an extra about $2 million too. So the Bulls have money to play with here, right? And the main thing is that LaVine is about to hit. He's about to probably get his contract renegotiated. So you need about $11.4 million in cap space to help get LaVine to that max level contract. Therefore, it's like we need to keep in mind about our cap space. But making this trade, one, it's like, okay, now with Lonzo, the big thing is that we can go over the cap to re-sign him because now we have his bird rights, so it's like that won't be that much of an issue, right? But I'm looking at like this, adding on Eric Bledsoe, it's not that bad of a thing. $18 million, I can accept. I was recently talking with someone about like trading Otto Porter Jr. for Al Horford, which is the reason why I brought this tab up. But that $27 million for next year, I am not accepting that, right? But if we can do this trade where I just showed you here, like somehow we get Eric Bledsoe, we get Lonzo Ball, we trade these two guys away, and then add on whatever you want, and just don't add Young, LaVine, or Williams, I'm okay with doing that. Honestly, I think Lonzo probably goes to like small forward on our team because it's like I just don't see how he can all of a sudden change his game so that not 132 of his made shots are assisted on. But I'm all for trying Lonzo. As much as I don't think it's going to work, I'm all for trying it. Here's the thing, though. I don't really see this ever happening. I honestly just don't see the Pelicans trying to make this type of deal, right? Or even just in general, like, how would the Bulls pull this off? Because Otto is, at this point, his value is, like, none. It's, like, very little. There's very little value to Otto Porter Jr. So how can we sweeten this deal for the Pelicans where it's like, we're giving away two of the worst players right here, and we're getting back two better players. Like, there's no reason for the Pelicans to be like, yeah, we'll do that right now, right? So it's just kind of thoughts illuminating in my head. Last person I want to talk about was TJ McConnell. I honestly think this could be a possibility. First off, TJ McConnell is about to hit just unrestricted free agency, and due to the fact that the Pacers don't really have that much cap space. They're already over the cap for next season. But not only that, but Aaron Holiday's been sitting on the bench recently. It's kind of like maybe you move TJ McConnell. There's a potential for the Bulls to obviously do something, which only $3.5 million, which is not guaranteed as well. Like, there is possibility for the Bulls to go get him. I've already been talking about how, hey, if you're the Bulls in the offseason, go get TJ McConnell. I love the TJ McConnell. His numbers look bad. It's not that amazing if you look at his numbers. Like, his numbers, 6.6 and 6.3. It's not eye-popping, but he has been a really good defensive player off the bench for the Pacers. But not only that, but he knows how to control pace. And that's what this Bulls team needs. They need a really good point guard that knows how to control pace of the game, which I just don't think Lonzo is that. But TJ McConnell, he knows how to do just that. And that's where I'm thinking maybe the Bulls can somehow snag him. It's going to take a bit, though, because maybe like a combination of like Denzel or something else, it's like maybe we can go get him. But I sincerely doubt it. Just my thoughts on the Bulls at the trade deadline. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.